Okay, space cadets, this is what you might call a cosmic shocker du jour. We're going to be talking about the solar system, primarily Jupiter. And what they're saying now is Jupiter's great red spot is shaking and quivering. I've been showing this for a long time, and I think this could be pretty serious. Let's take a look at it. Okay, this is the great red spot. And this is on Jupiter. And it's bigger than the whole Earth. They now say new discoveries continue to emerge about the great red spot. Okay, over 90 days they watched this thing wobble back and forth. The data revealed that the great red spot is wobbling like a bowl of gelatin. Now, what would do that? Okay, my friends, this is Jupiter's great red spot. Guess when this was from? This was from 1979. They flew right up next to it and took very, very close pictures, which I will show you. Now, as Voyager 1 flew by Jupiter in 1979, captured this photo of the great red spot. The great red spot, anticyclonic high-pressure storm in Jupiter, can link to the worst hurricanes on Earth. Now listen to this, an ancient storm so large that 3 Earths could fit inside of it. Inside here, 3 Earths. All right, now, this photo and others of Jupiter allowed scientists to see different colors and clouds around the great red spots, which imply the clouds swirl around the spot. They don't just, it's not a storm, it's a mound and it's swirling around it, going counterclockwise at varying altitudes, depending upon how high you are and how the mound is. It's Venus mounds, it's a mound. The great red spot has been observed from Earth for hundreds of years, yet never before with this clarity and closeness, and they missed everything. Now this is, again, that's 79, that's a long time ago. Okay, so it's wobbling like a bowl of jelly. Well, let's think about this. This is Jupiter. It's spinning this direction. The clouds, which are the atmosphere, have to come this way as the planet goes that way. This is a bump. And as it comes forward, it has to plow through these clouds. Simple as that. And when it does, they go like this, because this is as dense gets. This is like soup. Up there, it's so, well, this is the size of the Earth. You see the size of Jupiter? The gravity is so incredible that the gases condense, just like in a compressor tank. All right? You take that tank, and when the air is in there, it crushes it and crushes it so that there's so much density to it that it actually starts to create fluids and condenses into water. But in this case, this plows through it and makes all these clouds swirl. That's the reason they're swirling. It's not that this is just a spinning storm by itself. And I'm going to show you right now, this is much, much crazier than you can possibly imagine. This is wiggling like a bowl of jelly. Wow, let's look into that. Okay, I'm going to show you some very graphic pictures of the great red spot. However, back in 2018, they noticed something was going on. And this was the red spot at that time. And they noticed something was starting to slough off of here. I believe it started around that time. I can't recall, but it did. In 2019, there was a series. It's only a couple of weeks or a week or so. Well, I'll show you in a second. But these are the different spectrums so I can see, try to understand what they're looking at. But I believe this was when it started, it's April of 2018. They started to see things that they couldn't explain. All right, so this is 1 year later, and this is a sequence of from May 25th to June 1st. That's only a week. and they started seeing the blood, slabs of blood running off of here. Well, they said it was red, whatever. And these are the pictures taken showing the trailing off. And I'm going to tell you that's blood, because this is, well, you see what you see. If you're a doctor or an obstetrician, a gynecologist, or whatever they call it, that sure looks like, well, you make your own decision. I'm not even going to say what I think it is, but I'm going to show you what it is when they went in for a very close look at this long ago in 1979. This is what they saw. Remember I showed you those other pictures from NASA saying, here's what we found, and they showed a big picture so that you could see, you know, the great red spot, and you could actually see basically the same thing, but this is spectacularly detailed. They were right next to it. This thing is as big as 3 Earths. So what could come out of the center there if this thing started to bulge out and blood started to run out of there? Because this is a vagina. That's my claim. And it was the claim of everybody in ancient history that Jupiter gave birth to a fiery comet. And that fiery comet impacted with Earth and, in my opinion, created the Grand Canyon and pushed all that stuff from the Grand Canyon into Mexico. That's exactly what was recorded. And this, my friends, is a vagina. That little tab right there is the key to this whole thing. This makes it almost undeniable, that little latch. And of course you can see the hairline and everything. I can give you a whole bunch of names about labia majora, minora. All of the different bits and pieces are here. You know, the vaginal ripples and all that stuff. Everything is here. And this is the key to proving it. So what does that mean if that's true? What does it mean if that is literally a biological vagina? That would mean that Jupiter has to have the ability to be a male and a female and a creature that can give birth. Is that possible? Was anything written about that? Well, there was, yes. Okay, let's see if this is what I think it is. Here's an incredibly close flyby of Jupiter brought to us by the Juno spacecraft. Here goes. Yes, this is the one. All right, here it goes. Now let's try to open this up. Watch this now. Look at that. Look at these cloud formations and so forth. These are gases that are forming due to their molecular weight, really. Basically, they're collecting according to their magnetic interactions. Let's go with that. Now here, I believe, is the great red spot. And then they're just good. This is right almost on the surface. They're moving right through everything. And now they're going off. But you see how all these interactions, now I'm not sure if they're interactions with something on the ground or they're just strictly because of the different latitudes that lead up to the poles. The longitude doesn't seem to have any effect here to my way of thinking. But the latitudes, as you get spinning faster and faster, which really you are, well, you got to think about who's spinning faster. This would be spinning slower because it doesn't have as far to go. So this is spinning much faster, really pushing the particles. And then they will push out and create a boundary. That's how I'm seeing this. And the different colors and the different, those are realistic. In my way of thinking, those are different types of materials that have different weights. And they're gases. But the whole planet is not a gas giant, I don't believe. I believe the planet itself has a regular core just like any other one. Now we're going to look at the Great Red Spot from I have a lot of information on that. Now, just so you know, this guy, I believe he's correct. This movie was made up of 20 photographs, and they sort of blended them in. Smooth motion was from blending and panning and so forth, so you didn't really see it. Certainly nothing like what I'm showing. Now that's one of the photographs. And again, the whole universe is alive, and that is biology, and that, my friends, is a vagina. And Ovid speaks of this very clearly, long ago. Now this is Ovid, who was a very, very accomplished Roman, what they call poet. And he wrote about the same time as Julius Caesar, about beginning 8 CE. Now, this was a huge, monumental, epic work. This was no, a couple of scribbles and have a nice day. He went everywhere and found out everything. He had, I think he had 15 books by the time it ended. And now my work is done, which neither Jove, nor flame, nor sword, nor gnawing time can fade. He was very proud of himself, and he should have been, because this is absolutely phenomenal. Book 1 is the creation. And he's showing the Greek gods and all this stuff. This is the creation. Then he goes into the ages of mankind, the flood. Deucalion, who was Noah. Pyrrha was his wife. Apollo. He goes through all of these different ones that we've all heard about. Europa. Here's Jupiter. In ancient Roman religion and mythology, Jupiter, also known as Jove, is the god of the sky and thunder and king of the gods. He was the god of the gods. Jupiter was the chief deity of Roman state religion throughout the Republican and imperial eras until Christianity became the dominant religion. Well, we got a lot of talking to do about that, but Jupiter is the one that we're talking about right now that gave birth to Venus. Now, these are all his books. Book 15. Now, how did he start? What was the first 2 lines? The first 2 lines was this. All right, this is lines 1 and 2 of Book 1. Lines 1 and 2. He says, I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities. All right, they're changing them into new entities. Accompanying this theme is often violence inflicted upon a victim whose transformation becomes part of the natural landscape. All the things I've been showing, the mud fossils. There is a great variety among the types of transformations that take place, from human to inanimate objects like the Nile River or constellations, or animals, or plants, from animals to ants and fungi and mushrooms. They can turn themselves into humans, from one sex to another. If Jupiter was the god of the gods and he was a male god and he's got a vagina, well, that's kind of interesting. Now, this is what he says. He starts out lines 1 and 2. Transformation is a unifying theme. The whole thing is throughout talks about them being able to change matter into anything they wanted. That's why these crazy things were possible. Transformation is the unifying thing amongst the episodes of metamorphosis. Ovid raises its significance explicitly in the opening lines of his poem. In nova fert animus mutatus decere formos corpora. I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities. They go, and you turn into something else. And that's why Medusa could literally petrify people by looking at them. Somehow, she had something that she could do to change the molecular structure from living, moving biology into frozen, like nucleophilic invasion and substitution, and stopped. Doop, done. And that's working with the nucleuses of the particles. They could do it. And some of them could do it like crazy ways, and some, it's crazy. What can I say? That's the bottom line. It's crazy. But it just happens to be true. Okay, so, this is as strange as it gets. Jupiter is god of the gods, and Jupiter does have a great red spot, and that great red spot apparently gave birth to Venus. That's what was recorded in every culture on the planet. And this is the great red spot, and that is a vagina. And this right here is the anchor for the vagina. Why is it twisted this way? Well, because it's being pushed this way. You can see everything's trying to go that way because it's got to force its way through that dense atmosphere. So it's twisting this way. Means it's being pulled that way. Well, right now it's wobbling. Something's going on in here. It's wobbling around like a bowl of jelly, they said. But this right here is the anchor, and it's undeniable. And all the rest is undeniable too. You cannot miss this unless you just are a denier of what you see. Okay, now I'm claiming that this is a female body part. There's where a baby is born from. It's called a vagina. Now, I am going to have to get extremely graphic to make my point. That's just a fact. It's just a fact of life, so it's not anything to get upset about one way or the other. If I can present evidence that what I'm saying is true, I think that's the most important part. And we're going to be observing Jupiter's great red spot in extreme detail. All right, just think of this as an anatomy class. And this is a human vagina. And you can name all the little bits and pieces, but this is what we're focusing on today, is the attachment of body parts into the body proper. That means they can't go one way too far, one way the other way, but they're semi-mobile. This is the whole thing is being pushed this way, so instead of being straight up and down, that latch is angled this way. All right, let's look at it one more time. This right here. That stalk normally would be straight up and down. But the whole vagina is being twisted this way because of the dense atmosphere it has to plow through. So it's just naturally being pushed this way. This is what's keeping it from just going flipping around in circles, is this attachment. Now I'm going to show you one on an anatomical human, and it is extremely graphic, but it shows this, which is what we need to understand. Like I said, extremely graphic, but these are all the parts in this area. And these were all that tissue was above, sort of flopping over, and I'll show you that in a second. There's the vaginal canal, vaginal opening, and it has the ripples in it, which are standard. You have your urethra opening up here. The hair wrapping around it is there even. And this is what's called the venous mons. And that is moving through the atmosphere, and it's swirling around like this and pushing the vagina that way. And this anchor is what we were talking about. That anchor right there. That's the key to the whole thing. On Jupiter, it's facing this way because the whole thing is trying to get twisted. And it is anchoring itself in place so that it doesn't just keep going. That is an anchor. And I found them on all body parts, lungs and everywhere. Pieces of muscle. This is what I've discovered is the mud fossils, and they prove things that nobody ever knew about before. And this is one of them, and this is what's up on Jupiter. That's it right there. And that is that latch that I'm talking about, and everything is being moved this way. You can see it's all being sort of swished a little bit, and it's the same thing at the top. This is where it's impacting. Some of it's being pushed this way, some of it being pushed this way. But that's what's flowing through what's in front of it, which is a dense, gaseous, almost like a fluid. Think of it like going through soup. I mean, it's just, whoosh. And that is giving it a lot of twist. At the top, it twists a little this way. At the bottom, it really twists this way because the heaviness of the clouds is up here. And that gives it the most twist. But you have to have some, this has to go through too. That's why you got that moving in that direction. Yeah, I think this should be looked at pretty soon. It's been 2 years back here on Earth. They went out to Bennu, which was an asteroid. They picked up a sample, brought it back to Earth. And I've looked at Bennu. I know what it is, and because I study these things, and you have to study it. This is Bennu right here. And these little circles here, and these circles here, are plumbing because this was a heart. And it got ripped out of some creature's body, I don't know how. And also this one here, Psyche, is another heart. And these are the valves. Now this one's nice and clean, you can see. The other one, Bennu, is much smaller and it's a little scruffy looking. But you can see, these are tubes coming out. You see that tube? It's not an impact. That's a tube as well. And these colors are the colors of the different colors of blood. You see the black and the red and the yellow? That's the 3 different oxygenation states of blood. The red is the arterial. The yellow is lymph, and it's a mix, and then the black is the vein. And you have to cycle the heart and to pump and pull and pump and pull, and that's what they do, and that's what's left in space. And they know that, and they're headed out there right now with a probe, and they know that it's going to be loaded with metals because blood is loaded with metals. And these two basically are hearts, and if you look at the setup, here it is right here. That's the way hearts are. Now, they disassemble right here, and that's just a natural event because you have a black and a red layer of blood there, and they oppose each other. It's a polarity thing. And the whole plumbing goes off the top and it stays down the bottom. And these are what you end up with, which are the hearts. And in this case, they're in space. Nobody can deny that. And they're headed out there now, and they've already been there and back. And here's the sample. When I say hearts, what would you expect to find? Well, let's see what they did find. Now let's look at some other things that are biology in space, planets, Earth, Mars, Venus. Everything there is, as far as I can determine, is biological. I have meteorites here that still have blood in them. Meteorites, even the iron ones, you see, the metal ones, they cut them in half, and there's red and black blood spots inside of them because of the veins and arteries. But they smelted on the way coming to Earth. And I have some here that are well, here's one right here. It's a little lung. You see all those little holes? Those are where the alveoli are. And it's turned, it's turned into iron-ish. All metal meteorites are a lot of different metals, but iron primarily, because blood is primarily iron. Right, you can see this right here. This is a meteorite. All these different patterns are because of different types of metals that were in the blood. I don't know what body part this was, but it was saturated with blood. The black is from where there was a vein, and the red is from where there was an arterial entrance. And this has smelted almost completely, really. But you can still see where the blood was. Blood is very, very tenuous. Now, this is a body part, and it's a bloody, and that is an anchor right there, that little flap. All right, if you can see that anchor come in this way, and it locks in basically. Now, the lung I showed you before that I said came through space here, I just put a little water on it so you can see it better. Because otherwise you really cannot see these patterns all that well. All right, but this here is that flap right there. That's that flap. Just like the flap I'm showing you on this one. You see it? That's the same flap. And just locked this lung into the body so that it could float around, but it couldn't get too far away from where that was latched in. And the same thing with this. This had to latch into something so that the muscle was pulling on something. That's a tendon, basically. Working as a tendon. But anyway, they all have that. Everyone I've seen, look at this. This one here is blood. That's an artery, and that's that's a vein, that's an artery. These are chondrules. Chondrules are nothing more than little balls that are in skin. Your skin has saturated with these little balls. And that's what lets your skin do all these little things moving around. This is what they were showing us, chondrules. This is millions and zillions of little balls, and then every now and then there's going to be a blood vessel coming through that bunch of balls. And that's what they were showing before. Now, where is that? It's in your skin. It's just below the skin. And it's a patchwork of these little balls and straps so that you can pull and move and everything, and they come back to where they're supposed to be. And they are absolutely stunningly large on Earth. These are all the same things. That's skin. That's bodily tissue. Flesh, basically. And these are the balls. They have eroded out from the wall. And the wall itself is now turned into mud. And the balls are being eaten by some kind of moss because they still have edible food around them. The stones here and the Moki marbles in Utah, all over that area, Arizona, are the same thing. They're all the exact same thing as this right here. And that is the same thing as what I just showed you for that chondrule meteorite right there. These are the little balls. And they say, oh, those are chondrules. What is chondrules made of? Why are these chondrules? Those chondrules are balls, my friend. So I think I've explained what's going on. All of these things that we're seeing in space and everything, it's all biology. And it's stunningly large biology. Just as Ovid wrote. All right, so they land on Bennu. Well, they actually didn't land on it. They bounced off it. And what they did was they had a series of nitrogen propulsion jets to blow off any dust so that they could grab one of these boulders. They were hoping to grab apparently a boulder. They didn't realize the thing is just basically covered with dust. And they went way down, way down inside and grabbed a chunk when they hit the bottom. And that chunk happens to be very easily identified, and I will identify it right now after I show you where they bounced. You see this? A white and a black together make up 2 meters. All right, here they go over here. This is the point of impact. 2 meters, 4 meters, 6 meters, 8 meters. In feet, that's like 25 feet, 30 feet, whatever. That's pretty deep into this, what you'd consider soil. And they grabbed a chunk of whatever they banged into. Now, look at this very carefully. This is accurate as far as color goes. They were right there. This is not far from accurate. Not far from the real thing. I know it's enhanced, I'm sure. But you see how the black is completely separated from these other things. It's like somebody almost put paint on it. Look at this over here. Look at this. This is the red, and that's oxygenated blood. This is deoxygenated blood. They don't like each other. They push each other apart. They create iron banding, which I had talked about, which is why hearts pop apart. Now, I don't know where they were on here, but you can see this iron banding it's the iron just says, stay away from me, I'll stay away from you. And let me show you what a heart does. And it has these 2 types of iron wrapping around the plumbing, and it pops it right off. Okay, I'm saying Benyu's a heart, and they selected this place they call Nightingale, and it's a depression. You see it? It's right in here, so that there's not a lot of debris in here. It's like a little crater. All right, look at it carefully. Now that was going to be a tube that ran somewhere, more than likely, but this is a good spot right here. You see how it's like a little crater here? They figured they could grab a couple of chunks of this and that and bring it up. When they came down, they went, and it went way down inside. They had no idea it was going to happen. So don't forget, they touched down at the site they called Nightingale inside a dark, relatively smooth crater in Benyu's northern hemisphere. And when they exploded their dust evacuators, they just went way down inside. Okay, I got torn away for a while here, but I'm going to just sort of jump back in, I hope, to where sort of I was. This heart in space, which is Bennu, they went down into one of these little depressions and picked up a chunk of it and came back with it. And what they did was they did it like this. They hit and they went deep. I think I already showed this. And this is a separation of the black from the red. It's very, very oppositional, and this really proves what I'm saying, because the black stuff would have been on top of here and it's all blown away. There's little fragments of it left, but that's about it, because there is a separation zone right here. You see, that's when the mud fossils are in, after they die, it turns black. So the red and the black just go and they pop apart, and all the plumbing goes wherever it goes. And down here is what we're seeing, but we're seeing right down into the valves. And here's exactly what it looks like. This is exactly what happens when that top pops off. And it just pops off. It goes right around here. and all that stuff just takes off, and you can see into the valves, and there's like 4 of them really close together, and then there's a ton of little things that aren't really valves, but you see how close these things are? Boom, boom. They're right in this area together, and then that's the tendon. This is psyche. And these are the colors, the red, the black, and the yellow. The same thing is on Bennu, the red, the black, and the yellow. Now, they went way deep inside there, and then they grabbed a chunk, and they came back. And unbelievably, they went all the way down to the muscle and grabbed a chunk of muscle. Literal muscle. Here it is right here. Those are what they call sarcomeres. And they pinch like this, and they have a layer of membrane under, then the sarcomeres, another layer over the top, then more sarcomeres, and another layer, another layer, another layer, just like that. A whole batch of layers, and that's what gives you the muscle. These are the muscle bundles. When they come out this way, we're looking at them down like it was cut, and we're looking at the pieces that make up the bundle, if that makes sense to you. And around every one of these is going to be membranes. They all have membrane that separates one from the other. So that's what muscle looks like, and here's what heart muscle looks like here on Earth. The same stuff. There's no difference. These are the sarcomeres, and these are the membranes. All right, you see that? And you see these. Same thing, and it has all this. It has all the amino acids, and it has everything, and the anatomical, and as you can see it, it's a heart, and so is a psyche, and they're heading there right now. And this is what muscle sarcomeres look like. Now, this is all also on here on Earth. They're all over the place on Earth. All these layering, these there's thousands of millions of years, layer, layer, layer. No, that's connective tissue. And the same thing on Mars, they did the same thing. Look at this. Where is it? I had it around here somewhere. Here it is, look at this. This is up on Mars. Continually over many millions of years, layer, 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 layer. This is connective tissue. That's why you got these little cracks in here, because they're connective tissues. And inside is the red gooey stuff that makes them pull together, and that runs off as actually here on Mars it's dust. There's no water. There's not one little drop of water has rained on there. This is just dust. That's why they call it the red planet. All right, because it was whacked by Venus. And it caused this right here. This is the Marianas Trench. It's wider than the United States. Wider than that. And deep and nasty. And this is what wiped out Mars. And Mars discharged its electric field. It has no more magnetic field. Now, it has the magnetic fields have to do with a couple of different things. It's a spin, first of all, scrubbing, but you have to have an atmosphere. They have no atmosphere, so they're not building a magnetic field to speak of. So there's no magnetic field. However, that magnetic field discharged into Venus. You see that? That's a discharge. And this was all written about. It was written about in the ancient texts. Velikovsky recorded it. They forced him to take his book off the bookshelves. He called it Worlds in Collision. This is a world, and it collided with this world. And guess what else? It collided with us. And it made the Grand Canyon, I believe. That's what my claim is. So now we see worlds are in collision. Mars was wiped out, and this is muscle sarcomeres, the same as these right here. This is what it is. The red stuff is what makes it pull in, but it just erodes out, and you get left with all the connective tissue. The connective tissue just doesn't erode away to speak of. the red gooey stuff sort of just dried out and dusted off. Continually over millions of years? No, not at all. All right, so we've seen where they landed. We've seen sarcomeres. We've seen what came back from Bennu, which is sarcomeres. And it has all the DNA, the uracil, everything, every single bit of biology is here. And they just cannot accept the fact that it came out of a heart. It came out of a heart, this heart right there. And same thing is going to be on Psyche, only Psyche is much bigger. Now, what we have seen here is about Bennu, heart, heart, heart. And here's the plumbing. You can see right down into the valves of the heart. So I'm not going to belabor that. I have an artery right here. That's an artery. This is it. Looking down with a microscope on that spot right there. Just enough so I could see. These are all exactly the layers of an artery. That's what it is. It's a good-sized artery. And I have so much stuff that is unexamined and no interest and no questions from academia whatsoever. And I have contacted them over and over and over. So I've given up contacting because it's just it's a futile exercise, and I've been quite well exercised. So that's an artery, good size. And this is the things I just have right, well, this here was sent to me, but I have a lot of stuff right here on my own property. It just would be from a creature as big as that. You know, a 3-foot long fingertip. You'd be working with something like that. This hair follicle, I don't know if it's from a human or not, but you'd be looking at, this is 2-inch wide hair follicle, muscle, sebaceous gland, the hair shaft, the root. 2 inches wide, you'd be maybe have arteries that size. So this is not unusual stuff. It's just overlooked. Now check this out. This is from the government, U.S. government, the Valentine Cave lava tube, Medicine Lake volcano. That's a lava tube, they call it. Well, I have a different claim. I say this was an artery. And from here up, there was coating on here that's collapsed and fallen down here. Well, this part here has fallen down here. But the lining that was just below this, the real interior of the vein, has fallen down. But you can see it right about here. All right, this might have something to do with water flow through here, yes, no question about that. However, it also has to do with the fact that it doesn't have to stay glued up and it could fall down, and I believe that's the case here. But this is the inside of a vein. Artery, let me just show you that. All right, this is an artery wall. This is the basement membrane, this white stuff, and I claim we're in that cave at about here, and that stuff has caved in. And we can see up and see these patterns up in the ceiling. Now there's another area that a piece of this broke and fell in. And I believe if you looked up above, you could see this tunica media. All right, which is right above this layer, which is right above the layer that I say collapsed. But if you look down below at the bottom, there's a seam right there. And I believe that seam is this basement layer. Okay, I've shown a lot of this, not all of it. I've got so much, it's just hard to cover it all. But this thing about Bennu, this is a real tragedy. We spent way over $1 billion to do this, and it's been here for 2 years, and they're studying, we're going to study this for years and years. Well, it's a heart. Bennu is a heart. Bennu is a heart. And these right here, these are the valves. There's one here, one here. I think this is one right here. It's a big, big one. And they landed in one of these little depressions somewhere. They went, blew everything away, sent the thing in, grabbed a chunk, came back to Earth with it, and it is heart muscle. They went way deep. I mean, this is deep. I think like 30 feet, something like that, I figured out. 2, 4, 6, 8, 25, 30 feet, something like that, deep. And they hit the muscle. And here, this also shows, again, the black does not want to be intermingled with the white, with the red. It stays away. The yellow is an intermediary. There's yellow in between sometimes, yes. But the black is just totally hates the red. Though they don't like each other. The yellow can act as a bit of an intermediary, I agree. But not when you get black on top of red. They just boom, gone. And that's what happens, and that's why this has really separated. Above this would have been some black stuff, and it popped right off. That's why they're down into an area here, which is probably a little artery or I don't know what. But everything went away. They went inside and grabbed a hold of the muscle and came back with it. And of that, there is no question. Because here it is right here. And it has all of the biology. There's nothing here that isn't the biology. And it has the phosphate surprise, which are the membranes. It has the sarcomeres, which is the muscle. There's no way to deny what it is what it is. And to have it here for 2 years, that's not good, I don't think. That's a lot of money to just turn your back on what you find. And I forced this. I'm blocked from being able to comment on this I think anywhere. That just happens because you keep. I don't shut up about it. I don't say one time and just sit back and nothing happens. You say it 100 times, 1,000 times, and nothing happens so far. And here's on Mars. I showed you the muscle on Mars is the same muscle as is the stuff that's on Bennu. It's the same stuff that's here on Earth. We have exact same stuff. No difference whatsoever. Everything is biological, 100%. And these, look at this. This is heart sarcomeres right here. And you see this black chunk? That black chunk right there is a tear in the muscle. You see this rip here? Muscle is never supposed to be like that. It's always supposed to be in blocks and squares. It's never supposed to be changed. This is a rip, and it caused this vein blood to flow in there. Basically, it looks like to me. And here's what it is in a human heart, is that basically the same exact same thing. You see this tear? Same thing. All of that was those little tiny heart muscle sarcomeres that are the connective tissue. And the red stuff comes out. So you're going to have a zillion tiny little fibers that run straight across and blocks like this, except for when you had the heart attack. They're standing in the rip, like right here. All right, here they are standing in that rip. That's the rip, and here's the black stuff that came around. And they're supposed to be like this. Squared off like that. Not like this. That is just nothing more than a gigantic heart. And this is dikes and sills intruding dirtier in quartz. This is in Donegal, Ireland. Look at the size of that thing. And that's, I believe that's, well, I know it's muscle. I don't know if it's heart muscle, but it's muscle. And it's torn. That's a tear. And this is what fills in where those tears are. Obviously, the exact same thing. Exactly the same. Identical. No difference. None. Zero. And we can see the same stuff up on Mars. Not millions of years, no. Absolutely not. And I can show you stuff up on Mars. It's just, it's loaded with life that was there. It's now eroded away down to just dust. Like these right here, Moki marbles are the exact same thing as the Mars blueberries. No difference whatsoever. This is a basement layer of skin. The upper layer of skin has just dusted away and eroded, or whatever happened to it. It's gone, and the marbles are just laying there. And they're the same things that are in this stuff here, which is the Mars Morse code. And this is where these balls are. They're attached to these straps. They stretch, and they pull, and they pinch together. And they pull apart, and that's skin. This stuff is real. The whole universe is made out of gigantic stuff. And these hearts that are in space are not tiny. That heart right there, my friends, that is Psyche. And that heart is 140 miles wide and 170 miles the other direction. These things are absolutely stunningly gigantic, and I'm not going to try to offer an explanation other than they talked about these things in the ancient texts, and a whole planet being born from Jupiter. And right now, I think it's ready to give birth again. This jiggling of this red spot and the things that have happened in the last few years I've been tracking don't look good. It sloughed off all this red stuff and bubbled up to look like it was getting ready to give birth. Is that what it was going to do? This is 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Now, this is a planet. How many years does it take to give birth? But it's jiggling like a bowl of jelly right now. So, I don't know what to say about that. But I can tell you one thing right now. There is nothing but biology. And this was written about, and Velikovsky reported that the ancients said that the feared god Jupiter, which is the planet Jupiter, gave birth to a fiery comet, which eventually hit Earth, and then went around, came back, I guess again, hit us again, and then hit Mars and wiped Mars completely out. And that's what the ancient text said, and that's what Velikovsky reported in Worlds in Collision, and he was 11 weeks #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. They forced him to take the book off the bookshelves. The publisher retracted it because the academics wouldn't allow it. And they assaulted him, something terrible. I wrote a book about that, and it was just, and I said, boy, I wish he was here now to see what they're going to say. And they've kept me down for the last 10 years. I wrote that book 10 years ago, and they do the same thing to me they did to him. They're just waiting for me to die. And they may not have too much longer to wait. Who knows? Anyway, here's another one. This is a Mars crab. That's an artery, and has all those little arteries, little blood vessels going into the sarcomeres. This is it right here. And they're servicing the sarcomeres, the muscle. And above it is the vein coming back. This is quite serious, and it's real. And it changes everything, yes. We have to look at the mythology now as to what it did say and what we can verify and not verify. If you're out for truth, truth is truth. You can walk around and hide yourself in the woods. That's up to you. I don't do that. I look at what I can verify with material evidence, and this is what I've shown you. If you can contest it, that's what I want. I want somebody to get on the internet with me that's from wherever, that's a peer reviewer, and peer review me and tell me why I'm wrong about this. Why I'm wrong about this being an artery. And all the other things that I show, the giant stuff. And Jupiter. and a vagina, and Jupiter giving birth. And all the ancient texts were written talking about this, and that was not that long ago. This event where Jupiter gave birth to Venus was supposedly happened 3,500 years ago, approximately 1500 BC. This is what Velikovsky said. Now, what did he base that on? Every culture on Earth basically had the same story. There was a cataclysm of unbelievable events, enormous, absolutely huge, that overwhelmed the whole Earth, and it was the Great Flood. And it was because the feared god Jupiter, who was feared, and he was the god in charge of everything, gave birth to a fiery comet, which later turned out to be Venus. And after that, it's just all history up till now. And Venus was able to establish an orbit. However, it does spin backwards. And that I can account for too, because of the birth from the Great Red Spot. So there's a lot to this, a real lot. Okay, this is only 2 minutes long. It's directly from a mission control. Here we go. This is just showing how this thing is doing some crazy stuff and jiggling like a bowl of jelly. They're saying now they can really get some close-ups using Hubble and so forth. Now they're saying it's not stable. This red spot is bouncing around and jiggling, wobbling like a bowl of gelatin. They created this time lapse to show the squiggly motion. They know it changes a little bit of position here and there, but certainly nothing like how it's bouncing around now. They say it's squeezing in and out while speeding up. All right, they've been watching a long time. This goes back to 2023. Ones I showed go back to 2019. They're saying it's going to continue to shrink and do this and that. They don't realize what it is. They're saying it is a storm, causing the storm's fluctuation. Biggest storm in our solar system. Helps them to understand everything. They're going to figure it all out. Then they show up back here on Earth. That stuff was just here on Earth they were talking a second ago. All right, studying the biggest storm in our solar system helps scientists understand hurricanes like here on Earth. Follow us on social media. Okay, I guess this has probably gone a little long, but I think I have shown enough supporting evidence to make a claim that we do live in a biological universe as far as I can see. What's in space, what's on Earth, what's Mars, virtually everything. And the astronauts say space smells like steak. These things are literally being cooked in space. The closer they get to the sun, then they actually start cooking. And that's what the gases are coming off of these asteroids and then meteorites and so forth, is when they get so hot, they actually start cooking. There's still biology in here, nice red, wet biology in a lot of these. And I imagine what they brought back from Bennu still has, well, we know it has DNA and RNA and uracil and all the organic stuff in it, and it has the body chemistry, it has the muscle tissues, it has everything. The phosphates, which are the membranes. If it was looked at in that light, that it was biology, I wonder what they would find. Because right now they're steering away from, oh, it might have brought biology to Earth. No, it's a heart and it's in space, We have to look at it that way. We spent a lot of money to do this. And there's no reason that it should be dismissed. It's exactly what a heart is. It's just a heart circuit. And I can't believe they don't know this, or they don't have somebody that has any biological or anatomical abilities. And the same thing with this. They think that's just natural? Like it just happened from erosion? No. They call it a lava tube. Everything they assign to lava, magma, whatever they can't explain, that's what happened. And then tectonic plates, of course, that's the other one. All right, I guess I'm going to leave it at that, my good friends. We're going to be just keep rolling over this until it starts to be spoken of in general, in the mainstream, rather than laughed at and be assaulted for speaking up about this stuff. This stuff there's no reason to hide this. This is truth. When truth is truth, it's truth. You cannot hold any defense against truth. There is no defense against truth. And that's actually written in the law. Truth is the ultimate defense. And we want it. All right? I love you.